My past came back to haunt me when my husband found out about my wild years. Hello, Reddit. Longtime lurker here, but this is actually my first time posting. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the kind of person to spill my guts to strangers on the internet, but I am really in a bad place right now. I've been spiraling for days, and I don't know what to do or where to turn. I'm hoping that writing this all out will help me make sense of the mess I'm in, or maybe some of you will have advice that can point me in the right direction. Let's call my husband Colin. Colin and I have been married for 7 years. Our relationship has been amazing. At least it was up until now. Sure, we've had our fair share of challenges, like every couple does, but Colin has always been the rock of our marriage. About a year into our marriage, Colin got transferred to another state for work. His company wanted him to open and manage a new branch there. It was a huge opportunity for him, one of those career moves that could really set him up for life. Of course, the original plan was for me to pack up and move with him. We talked about it at length, and I was ready to leave everything behind to start fresh with him in this new city. But, as life often does, things got complicated. A few personal issues cropped up, family stuff, career stuff, and in the end, I decided to stay back. Colin understood, or at least he said he did. I promised him it would only be temporary, that we'd figure out a way to close the distance sooner rather than later. So for about 2 years, we were in this sort of long-distance arrangement. He visited when he could, but it wasn't very frequent, maybe once every month or two if we were lucky. At first, we tried to keep things as normal as possible. We had phone calls, video chats, texts, but let's be honest, it wasn't the same. And here's the thing about long distance. When your partner isn't around, it can start to feel like you're living 2 separate lives. During the times Colin wasn't visiting, I was left to my own devices. And well, I didn't always make the best choices. I don't know what got into me. At first it started small. I'd go out with some friends, hit up a bar, or hang out at a party. Nothing too crazy, just blowing off steam. But the more I did it, the more reckless I got. It was like I'd unlocked this version of myself I hadn't been in years. The version that didn't have responsibilities or consequences. Soon, it wasn't just about going to parties. I started meeting new people, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and yes, hooking up. I know, it's disgusting, and I'm ashamed of it now. But back then, I didn't think about it that way. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Colin was all the way in another state, right? How the hell was he ever going to find out? I convinced myself it was harmless, that it didn't mean anything, and that it wouldn't affect my marriage. I even told myself that since it was just physical, it wasn't cheating. Looking back, I realize how delusional and selfish I was. I was living in this bubble where I thought I could have it both ways. A loving husband who adored me and a wild, no-strings-attached lifestyle when he wasn't around. It was a really crazy period in my life. I can now clearly see how wrong I was, how deeply, unforgivably wrong. I messed up, plain and simple. I let myself spiral. Yes, I'm ashamed of it. Yes, it disgusts me. But at the time, I didn't care. I was selfish, reckless, and caught up in the moment. I went wild during that period, and not in the fun, harmless way people joke about. It was chaos, and I justified it to myself over and over again. Here's the thing. After Colin and I got married, I started feeling, restless. It's hard to put into words, but part of me wondered if we'd jumped into marriage too soon. We were young, and everything happened so fast. One minute we were dating, the next we were planning a wedding, and suddenly I was someone's wife. I loved Colin, don't get me wrong, but there was this nagging voice in the back of my mind, whispering doubts. Was this what I really wanted? Were we ready? Was I ready? Those doubts festered during that first year of marriage, even before Colin's transfer. And when he moved away for work, it felt like I was being handed a way out, not of the marriage itself, but of the responsibilities that came with it. I told myself it was just some space, just a chance to breathe. So yeah, I took full advantage of that distance. I explored. I did things I shouldn't have done, things I knew deep down were wrong. In some twisted way, it felt freeing at the time. I convinced myself that I needed it, that it was helping me figure out who I was and what I wanted. For those 2 years, I lived a double life. Whenever Colin visited, I was the perfect wife. I missed him desperately, cooked his favorite meals, and did everything I could to make him feel loved and appreciated. I wore my wedding ring proudly, like it actually meant something. But the moment he left, I'd switch right back to the other me, the wild me, the version of myself that partied too hard, hooked up with strangers, and acted like my marriage didn't exist. I can't even explain why I did it. Maybe it was the doubts, maybe it was the excitement of being reckless, or maybe I was just selfish, plain and simple. Either way, I wasn't acting like a married woman should act. I wasn't acting like someone who loved her husband should act. And the worst part, I knew it was wrong the whole time. I was ashamed of myself even back then, but I still did it anyway. After those 2 years of long distance, Colin couldn't do it anymore. He told me he just couldn't do the whole distance thing anymore, and that he was thinking of coming home. At first, I felt a pang of guilt. I had no right to feel upset, but part of me was. Not because I didn't want him back, of course I did, but because his return meant my double life was coming to an abrupt end. The wild version of me, the one that had thrived while he was gone, would have to disappear. Colin said he was putting in a request to transfer back home. It wasn't an easy decision for him. The branch he was managing was thriving, and the company saw him as a key player in its success. He'd worked so hard to build that foundation, but he was willing to leave it all behind for us. I should have felt grateful, but instead, in a way, I felt trapped. You see, I could have moved to be with him earlier. It was always an option, and something we planned to do. But by the time he'd suggested it again, I'd already fallen too far into my wild phase. I told him I couldn't because of family obligations and work commitments. But the truth? I didn't want to move. I was too in love with the freedom of living my own life, not being held down one bit by the responsibilities of being married. But then, with Colin coming home, that changed everything. There was no running away from it anymore. Thankfully, the timing worked out in a way that felt almost too convenient. The head of the branch in our state was retiring, and Colin was offered the position. It was a seamless transition, and just like that, Colin was back. The moment he returned, I made a decision. The wild version of me had to die. I couldn't keep living the way I had been, so I did what I thought I needed to do. I buried that part of myself. I cut ties with the party crowd, deleted numbers from my phone, stopped going out altogether. I slipped back into the role of the partner I was supposed to be. On the outside, everything looked perfect. Colin was happy to be back, and I pretended like nothing had changed. But deep down, I was suffocating. The guilt of what I'd done, of who I'd been while he was gone, was eating me alive. I'd look at him and I'd feel like the worst person in the world. But I didn't say anything. I told myself it was better this way, that if I just focused on being a good wife, I could make up for my mistakes, that if I never let him find out, we could still have the perfect life together. But my best friend, let's call her Rachel, wasn't having any of it when she found out about my wild side. And let me tell you, she found out in the most unexpected way. One day she came over to my house unannounced, which honestly wasn't unusual for us. That's just the kind of friendship we had. We'd been best friends for years, and it wasn't uncommon for one of us to just show up at the other's door with no warning, expecting coffee, gossip, and a comfortable place to crash. But that day, she walked into something she wasn't expecting. I had someone over, a guy who definitely wasn't Colin, and Rachel walked in at just the wrong moment. I'll never forget the look on her face. It was a mix of shock, disgust, and anger. I tried to play it off, but she wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what was going on. She didn't yell or blow up on me right then and there, but once the guy left, we had the conversation. She sat me down in my own living room and demanded to know what the hell was going on. At first, I tried to lie, to minimize it, but Rachel wasn't buying it. She pressed, and I caved. That was the day she found out everything about my wild side. The parties, the hookups, the reckless behavior. She found out that the wife Colin thought he had wasn't the wife I was being while he was gone. Rachel was furious. She couldn't believe I was doing this to Colin. She was disgusted, not just with my actions, but with the fact that I'd managed to keep it hidden from her for so long. And she was right. She had every right to be angry with me. I don't blame her for the things she said because honestly, I deserved all of it. Fast forward to when Colin finally came back home, and Rachel was still holding on to what she knew. She was insistent that I come clean. She kept telling me that I needed to tell him, that he deserved to know. It wasn't even a suggestion, it was a demand. She told me that if I didn't come clean to Colin, she would tell him herself. The pressure was unbearable. I couldn't stand the thought of Rachel breaking the news to him, so I did what I thought was the only way out. I lied. I told Rachel that I had already confessed everything to Colin. I told her we'd had a long emotional talk, that he was hurt but willing to work through it. I even went so far as to say that we were going to counseling together to heal from it. I fed her this whole elaborate story because I knew it was the only way to stop her from going to Colin herself. Looking back now, I realize how stupid and cowardly that was. I should have just owned up to it and been honest with both of them, but at the time I was too scared. I didn't want to lose Colin, and I didn't want Rachel to hate me any more than she already did. To my surprise, Rachel believed me. I guess she didn't think I'd have any reason to lie to her, or maybe she just wanted to believe that I was doing the right thing. Either way, she bought it, and after that, the issue kind of disappeared. For the next couple of years, everything went back to normal, at least on the surface. Rachel and I remained best friends, and she never brought it up again. She thought Colin and I were working on our marriage, that everything was fine, and I let her believe that. Life went back to normal, or at least as normal as it could be with a massive secret hanging over my head. At this point, Colin and I have been married for 7 years. So yeah, this whole thing with my wild side happened about 4 years ago. And in all that time, Colin never had a clue. He was completely in the dark, blissfully unaware, and I was totally fine with that. I mean, I'd buried that chapter of my life deep down where it belonged. I thought I'd done a decent job of leaving it in the past. But of course, nothing stays buried forever, right? Because now, here I am, dealing with the fallout, and it's all thanks to Rachel not being able to keep her damn mouth shut. I know, it sounds like I'm blaming her. And yeah, okay, I am kind of blaming her. But at the same time, I'm not just blaming her. I mean, I get it. I made this bed, and now I'm lying in it. At the end of the day, Rachel wouldn't have had anything to talk about if I hadn't cheated in the first place. So really, the blame starts with me. I know that. But here's the thing. Rachel did have a choice. She didn't have to tell her loud-mouthed husband. She didn't have to stir all this up after years of silence. If she just kept her mouth shut, I wouldn't be dealing with this mess right now. My marriage would still be fine. My life would still be fine. And look, before anyone comes for me in the comments, I get it. What I did was wrong. I'm not excusing my behavior, and I'm not saying I don't deserve consequences, but at the same time, I can't help but feel a little betrayed by Rachel. She knew what this would do to me. She knew what this would do to Colin, and yet, she still went ahead and opened her mouth. I guess part of me is just frustrated because I thought this was all behind me. I thought I'd done what I needed to do to move on and make things right in my own way. And now, all of a sudden, it's like the past is slapping me in the face, and I don't even know how to handle it. It's not like I can go back and change what I did, and it's not like I can undo what Rachel's done now either. Rachel ended up opening her big-ass mouth to her husband. Yup, she told him. Of all the people in the world, she told her fucking husband. And let me just say, if I'd known this was going to happen, I never would have gotten involved with their situation. Hell, I wouldn't have even suggested Colin give her husband a job in the first place, and let me break it down for you. A couple of years back, Rachel's husband got laid off. His workplace did this whole round of layoffs, and he was one of the unlucky ones. At the time, I felt bad. Like, really bad. I mean, the guy's a decent dude, well, was a decent dude, and I thought I was just being a good friend by trying to help. Colin, as I've mentioned, is the head of his branch, so naturally I suggested he take a look at Rachel's husband's resume. I didn't push it or anything. I just casually brought it up one night. Colin, being the amazing man he is, did just that. He reviewed the resume, thought the guy was a good fit, and hired him. Fast forward 2 years, 2 whole fucking years. This man has been working under my husband for 2 years, and now, of all times, this whole mess decides to come out. From what I've been told, piecing together what Rachel said and what Colin told me, it all started as some casual random-ass conversation. Rachel's husband and Colin were just chatting at work, nothing serious. Apparently they were talking about one of their co-workers whose wife had cheated on him. And get this, The coworker also found out that the baby they just had wasn't even his. Yeah, messy, but not my business, so I didn't ask for details. Anyway, this coworker put in a request to take some time off, and of course, Colin granted it. No big deal, right? Well, that's where things got sticky. Rachel's husband and Colin kept talking about the situation, and somehow the conversation shifted to forgiveness. Rachel's husband started going on about how he couldn't imagine forgiving someone for cheating. He was talking about how people who forgive cheaters are so brave, like it was some badge of honor. And then Colin, being Colin, agreed with him, which again, I totally understand. Colin has always been the type to draw the line at cheating. Now, here's where everything went to shit. For some reason, God only knows why, Rachel's husband decided this was the perfect time to play dumb and say something about how that stance was weird when Colin chose to forgive me. At this point, Colin was confused as hell. He was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And that's when Rachel's husband, with no hesitation, spilled every single one of the fucking beans. He told Colin everything that I had told Rachel, about my wild years, about the parties, the hookups, all of it. I mean, I don't know exactly how much he told him, but based on the fallout, it must have been a hell of a lot. When I found out, I was floored, like, what the actual fuck, Rachel's husband? Who does that? Why did he even remember so many details about my past like that? And why now? 2 years into working for Colin, and he just decides to open his mouth and destroy everything? Dad. I don't know if he was trying to score some points with Colin or if he just felt like being a fucking snitch that day. Either way, it worked. Because now, my husband, my sweet, loving husband who I thought would never find out, is looking at me like I'm a stranger. And Rachel? Oh, don't even get me started on her. I haven't decided if I'm more pissed at her or her husband. Because at the end of the day, if she just kept her mouth shut, her husband wouldn't have known anything. And if he didn't know, he wouldn't have gone blabbing to Colin. Colin came home furious. Not annoyed, not upset, furious. I had never seen him like that in my life. The moment he walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the way he slammed the door or the cold silence when he put down his keys. It was the look in his eyes, pure, unfiltered anger. He didn't even give me a chance to ask what was wrong before he confronted me. And when he said it, when he said he knew about my past, my stomach dropped. I froze for a second, just staring at him. But the moment he started listing off details he could only know if someone told him, I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. I tried to stay calm. I tried to apologize. I begged. God, did I beg? I told him it was years ago, that it didn't mean anything, that it wasn't who I was anymore. But it didn't matter. Nothing I said mattered. The argument got ugly. He wasn't just hurt, he was disgusted. I could see it on his face and the way he looked at me like I was a stranger. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. I know I'm in the wrong here. I know I made this mess. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less when he told me to get out. Yes, he kicked me out. That night, I packed a bag with shaky hands, sobbing the whole time, and left the house. I didn't even know where to go at first. My first thought was Rachel's house, but then I stopped myself. Fuck that. My marriage is falling apart because Rachel couldn't keep her big-ass mouth shut. Why the hell would I run to her? So I went to my parents' house. It's been days now, days of me calling and texting Colin, trying to explain, trying to make him understand that I haven't cheated on him since, that it was a stupid mistake I made years ago. But he's not listening. He doesn't care that it happened 4 years ago. He doesn't care that I've been loyal ever since. All he sees is that I betrayed him. Rachel, of course, has been apologizing nonstop, blabbering about how sorry she is, how she didn't mean for things to go this far. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I'm pissed at her. This entire mess started because she couldn't keep her mouth shut and decided to tell her husband. And then her husband decided to blow up my life by telling Colin. Now Colin's talking about divorce. He says cheating is where he draws the line, that it doesn't matter how long ago it happened. He keeps saying he can't look at me the same way, that every time he looks at me, all he can think about is me with someone else. And I don't know what to do. I feel heartbroken. I feel hurt. I feel like my entire world is crumbling around me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I love Colin. I've always loved him, and I know I screwed up. I know I don't deserve his forgiveness, but God, I want it so badly. I keep replaying the last few days in my head, trying to figure out how to fix this. How do I make him believe that I'm not that person anymore? How do I make him see that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right? I don't even know why I'm making this post. Maybe I just needed to get it all out. Maybe I'm hoping someone out there has been through something similar and can give me advice. Reddit, is there any way to fix my marriage? Is there any way to make Colin see that I'm worth forgiving? Or should I just accept that I've lost him forever? I feel so lost. Update. Hello, Reddit. First of all, I honestly don't even know what to say. When I posted here, I was just looking for a place to vent and maybe get some advice from a handful of people. I never expected the post to blow up like it did. I went to bed thinking I'd wake up to a couple of comments, but instead, I woke up to a flood of responses. And wow, a lot of you didn't hold back. I want to say up front that I know I messed up. Trust me, I knew that even before I hit post. But the sheer number of comments calling me out on my bullshit, yeah, that hit hard. I forced myself to read through as many as I can because I felt like I owed it to myself and my husband to hear the truth, no matter how brutal it was. Yes, I cheated. Yes, I was wrong. Yes, I am 100% to blame for the situation I'm in now. I said that in my original post, but let me reiterate it. I made my bed, and now I have to lie in it. No one else is responsible for my actions. I should have been upfront with Colin from the start, and honestly, I should never have cheated in the first place. If I'd just been loyal, none of this would have happened. The comments were tough to read, but they also forced me to reflect. A lot of you pointed out things I hadn't fully realized about myself, like how I might have been deflecting some of the blame onto Rachel or her husband when, really, they wouldn't have had anything to spill if I hadn't given them ammunition in the first place. And you're right. While I'm still upset with Rachel for telling her husband and for how everything unfolded, the root cause of all this is me. Now for the update. Colin wants a divorce. He's hell-bent on it. He's not changing his mind, and no matter what I say or suggest, he shuts it down. I've tried everything: counseling, therapy, offering to quit my job, being a stay-at-home mom, even suggesting ways to rebuild trust, like sharing my location 24/7 or having an open phone policy. But it's all been a hard no from him. He says he just wants a clean break. He doesn't want to try to fix things. And honestly, I can't blame him. I hate saying this, but I think part of me knew this was going to be the outcome the second he confronted me. When I saw how angry and hurt he was, I realized just how much damage I'd done. Not just to our marriage, but to him as a person. He feels betrayed in the worst way, and I can't undo that. This will probably be my last post here. I don't see much point in updating further since there's nothing else to say. My marriage is over, and I have to accept that. To everyone who commented, whether you were harsh, supportive, or somewhere in between, thank you. Your words helped me see things from perspectives I hadn't considered, even if they were painful to hear. Update. Hello, Reddit. So, first of all, I know I said I wasn't going to make any more updates, and honestly, it's been a while since I even logged into this app. But when I did, I saw so many DMs asking for updates, and, well, I kind of felt like sharing one more post. So here we are. For a long time, I was terrified of someone who knows me stumbling on my posts. Like, imagine someone reading this and going, this story sounds real familiar. It made me paranoid. I even considered deleting the original posts and just wiping my account. But then I thought, what's the point? That first post went viral. It's been shared so many times. Deleting it now wouldn't change a damn thing. And honestly, at some point I stopped caring. If someone who knows me is reading this, well, screw you. Yes, I cheated. Yes, I fucked up. And yes, my life is a train wreck right now. Are you happy? Anyway, I don't have much of an update. No dramatic twists, no positive turnaround. If you're looking for that, sorry to disappoint. The truth is, I'm miserable. My life has been a downward spiral since everything came out. I've become a shell of myself. I got served the divorce papers, so it's real now. It's actually happening. This isn't just a nightmare I can wake up from. The papers detail how things are going to be divided, what's going to happen next, and seeing it all in writing makes it feel even more final. It's like the universe is saying, yep, you fucked up, and here's your punishment. I miss Colin so much. I can barely function most days. I'm dragging myself to work, but my performance has tanked. I can feel people at work noticing, but I just don't care anymore. I'm constantly anxious. I feel sick all the time. and I've completely withdrawn from everyone around me. As for Rachel, well, I've distanced myself from her. She was one of the very few friends I had, and to her credit, she's tried to fix things. She's apologized over and over again, even though, let's be honest, this wasn't really her fault. I mean, I cheated. Rachel didn't make me do that. But still, her telling her husband, which then snowballed into him telling Colin, it's hard not to feel resentment toward her. It's irrational, I know, but it's there. Rachel's even had her husband apologize to me, but what's the point? None of it changes anything. I told her I need space, and honestly, I don't think our friendship will ever go back to what it was. If we do manage to repair it someday, it'll never be the same. I don't think I can trust her the way I used to, and I don't even think I want to. My parents are incredibly disappointed. They loved Colin, really loved him. They treated him like the son they never had, and this whole mess has hurt them deeply. Seeing their disappointment is like salt in the wound. They're not just upset at me for what I did, but also heartbroken because they're losing someone they considered family. It makes everything feel even worse. So yeah, that's my life now. Miserable, depressed, isolated. I know Reddit loves drama, but this isn't some soap opera. It's just a sad, shitty situation I created for myself. To everyone who commented on my previous posts, whether you were harsh or supportive, thank you. Your words, no matter how difficult they were to read, forced me to face the reality of what I've done. I'm not expecting a happy ending. I'm not expecting Colin to forgive me. I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward when everything feels so hopeless. Thank you for reading, I guess. Update. Hello, Reddit. I know. I've said it before, but this is really my last update. Like, for real this time. Once I post this, I'm probably going to delete my account. Honestly, I debated even writing this, but I felt like I owed it to you guys in a way, to close the chapter. Maybe it's just my way of saying goodbye or trying to make sense of it all one last time. So yeah, here it is. The divorce is finalized. It's official. I've lost the one man who meant the world to me, the one man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. And it's entirely my fault. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I am miserable. I don't think I'll ever not be miserable about this. I wake up every day with this crushing weight on my chest, knowing I destroyed something that could have been beautiful and lasting. I am in turmoil. I feel like I've lost everything, and honestly, I probably have. The house. Oh, the fucking house. Colin said he didn't want it. He wanted me to buy out his share, to take it entirely. But guess what? I didn't have the money to do that. Of course I didn't. So we ended up selling it and splitting the money. That was that. That house was the only marital asset we had together. Everything else, his savings, investments, everything, was premarital. I walked away with my half of the house sale and nothing more. That's just how it goes, I guess. When the house sold, I quit my job. Yep. I put in my notice, and the moment I was free of that responsibility, I went straight into full-on hermit mode. I just wanted to be miserable in peace without anyone watching me, judging me, or asking me if I was okay. The money I got from the house is enough to last me for a while, so I'm not worried about that right now. My parents occasionally come to my room to check on me, but for the most part, I've been alone. And honestly, that's how I want it. I can't even remember the last time I left the house. I barely leave my room. I know it sounds pathetic. It is pathetic. But this is my life now, and I don't really care anymore. Rachel. I guess I should address that. Our friendship hasn't recovered, and I know that's largely my fault. Even though I know she didn't cause this, I still feel some resentment toward her. It doesn't make sense, I know that. But the feelings are there, and I can't seem to let them go. This is someone who was my best friend for years. Now she's just someone I used to know. It hurts, sure. But honestly, I don't have the energy to care anymore. I'm just existing at this point. There's nothing more to say. I wake up, go through the motions, and wait for the day to end so I can crawl back into bed. This is it. This is the life I made for myself. So yeah, Reddit, that's the update. It's not some dramatic redemption arc or whatever. It's just me, being miserable, and trying to figure out how to keep breathing. And then thank you for reading my posts, for your comments, your judgments, and your support. It meant something, even if I don't know what that something is right now.